Hello and welcome to Startup Street. I'm Shruti Mishra and with me is Mugdha Warrier. Now on What's Brewing today, the Indian startup ecosystem saw $10.6 billion of venture capital investments in 2020 so far, lower than the $12.5 billion seen in 2019, according to the latest data from Venture Intelligence. The total number of VC deals stands at 648 so far in 2020, much lower than the 833 deals in 2019 and 731 deals in 2018. This is the lowest number of deals in the last 5 years. The sectors that bagged the highest VC funding include e-commerce, which saw $2.32 billion of funding, followed by EdTech, which raised $2 billion in funding. Next on the list was the logistics sector that raised $1.71 billion, followed closely by food tech, which saw $1.45 billion in funding, and then fintech that raised a funding of $1.4 billion this year. Now, 2020 also saw 10 new unicorns, which is higher than the 9 unicorns created in 2019 and 8 in 2018. The unicorns of 2020 are Pine Labs, Unacademy, Postman, Nykaa, Daily Hunt, Cast24, Zenoti, Razorpay, Zerodha and Glance. Well, this was some year-end data from the Indian startup ecosystem. Let's go across to Mugdha, who has some interesting facts from the social commerce space. Over to you, Mugdha.
Well, absolutely. Now, a recent report by Sequoia India and Bain titled The Future of Commerce in India shows that the social commerce sector, which is a nearly $2 billion GMV market today, will be worth close to $20 billion in just 5 years and will likely hit nearly $70 billion of GMV by 2030. Well, in short, India's social commerce sector will be 2 times the size of the current e-commerce market within the next 10 years, as per the report. To talk more about the potential in the social commerce space and the findings of the report, we have Mohit Bhatnagar, Managing Director, Sequoia India. Mohit, welcome on the show. And it's really an interesting report. You know, you're predicting an exponential growth for the social commerce sector that can also empower 40 million small businesses. But the report also shows that not a lot of urban users are currently using social commerce, and it's the lower ticket items such as fashion and grocery that are more popular, not the high-end items. So what really are the factors that will push the GMV growth for social commerce?
Sure. Mugdha, it's fairly simple to understand. Today, India has over 500 million people who are on the mobile internet, but only about 100 million or so are buying online from 2 or 3 large companies. The remaining 400 million people are spending as much as 3 hours a day on WhatsApp groups, on social media groups, on communities. And it's just a matter of time that commerce is now made available on those places that they are actually already hanging out. And that is why we are so bullish on the fact that the future of commerce, the future of online buying, lies in where people can actually conduct commerce where they are, which is on social sites and communities. Now, today, in the urban centers, we're well serviced, we're well served, if you will, by 2 or 3 large companies that provide our online shopping behavior. For the smaller cities and towns in far-flung areas, oftentimes it's best serviced by some of these earlier social commerce trends. But in my mind, it's just a matter of time, because people like to buy products and services from other people, not from destinations. And I feel like it'll be all pervasive in the future as India moves towards a social commerce revolution.
All right, so it's the convenience and the community connect really that will help social commerce. Now, within Sequoia's portfolio itself, you have Meesho and Bulbul, which are really leading the social commerce space. What are some of the other innovations you're looking at? And in fact, in the report, you know, it's suggested that there are a lot of opportunities when it comes to creating chatbots for sellers, creating digital storefronts for sellers on social commerce. What are you looking at next?
The small sellers are the backbone of the social commerce opportunity. If you think about it, the number of contract manufacturers, the number of wholesalers, the number of housewives in India that can actually embrace the internet and sell products online by becoming part of the online revolution is the most exciting part. Now, for these small businesses to be effective online, there are a number of tools that need to be built, number of products and utilities that they will need to adopt in order to make sure that the products that they're selling are of the right quality, to make sure that the customer buying experience is seamless, to make sure that the logistics provider that they use actually provides it in a delivery time that is acceptable to the customer. So there's a lot of adjacent opportunities around payments, logistics to actually make the social commerce opportunity come alive. In places like Meesho, we've noticed millions and millions of housewives during this COVID period have actually joined the bandwagon at Meesho and actually use their WhatsApp, Instagram links and communities to actually create personalized catalogs, which they've made available to their friends and family. And then done something very interesting, which is to basically do an assisted sale for people who are not used to buying online. So for example, if someone hasn't bought online, they're worried about what size might fit them. Would there be shrinkage in the fabric? And that's where the Meesho entrepreneur steps up and sort of guides and assists in making the first sale. It's a new way of shopping, it's a new experience, and it's certainly catching fire in most parts of India.
All right, Mohit. So, in fact, at the beginning of the show, we talked about the total funding that's come into 2020. And, e-commerce, in fact, continues to be the sector that sees the biggest VC funding. And that's, of course, good news also for the social commerce space. But, since we have you and you're, one of the leading VCs, what do you make of the overall funding that has fallen and also the number of deals that have dipped? Is there some concern, or do you think the activity will pick up, post-COVID?
We invest in 10-year cycles, Mugdha. COVID, of course, was a massive hiccup for the world where we all were worried about how things might pan out in March. But honestly, across the board, across the startup ecosystem, we've just been very pleasantly surprised to see how fast the startup ecosystem has rebounded, and not just rebounded back to pre-COVID levels in most companies, but also in a much more healthier unit economics way. So I would be very, very optimistic about what the future holds for our startup ecosystem in India. The money just follows that. There is a lot of capital available in global markets that I think is looking to come and find the next big startup from India. So we at Sequoia actually raised a couple of funds this year, both a new venture and a growth fund. And all our LPs, all our investors have shown us nothing but optimism for our markets.
Okay, so you're very optimistic. There is enough capital. Coming back to social commerce, I want to ask you from the regulatory point of view, how are you looking at the sector, given that there is a lot of regulations coming around the e-commerce space, with the e-commerce policy, the country of origin issue, etc. What developments do you see for social commerce, and do you see any regulations for that?
Like I said, the backbone for social commerce to take off in India is to have millions of social sellers, millions of small businesses that come online to sell. And so the opportunity here is to actually remove whatever friction we can to allow for a small wholesaler, to allow for a housewife to step up and start their business. So instead of actually buying from 2 or 3 large companies in the future, expect there to be hundreds of thousands of sites. Expect there to be millions of pages that you would be able to discover new products and actually buy from. So whatever our regulatory structure is needed to actually allow for that low friction environment that allows small sellers to come online is something that we would hope to see get into place.
All right, Mohit. Thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing those interesting insights on social commerce. But with that, it's over to you, Shruti.
Well, Mugdha, very, very interesting chat there with Mohit taking us through some of the opportunities in the social commerce space. Moving on to our hot seat segment. Now, one size no longer fits all. That's the belief of premium beauty tech startup Bare Anatomy. Founded in 2019 by Rohit Chawla, Sifat Khurana and Vimal Bhola, the venture believes personalization is the future of the beauty industry. The team analyzes the unique hair and skin profile of every customer and formulates effective products for specific requirements. Now, to know how and to talk about the road ahead at Bare Anatomy, joining me now is its co-founder and CEO, Rohit Chawla. Rohit, many thanks for joining us today. Now, you customize your products for consumers, keeping in mind their lifestyle and diet. Take me through the process, the technology behind it, and, in how much time do the products actually reach the customer?
Hi. So I think what we first start with is a small quiz on our website where the consumer fills out their choice, let's say a hair care quiz, where they will give our data around hair, and their kind of waviness, coily, and the scalp type, and other things like lifestyle. So what we do after using that data is the technology part, which where our algorithm sits, the software basically figures out what is the right formulation based on all the learnings we have been doing for the last 2 years,
Okay.
and kind of come up with the right formulation for that person. Okay, so this is the software piece of technology that we deploy, which is very different for us than others. The other part of technology is the custom machinery that we have built in the last year. Because if you look at the traditional business, they have a 3-ton machine or a 5-ton machine which spits out the same formulation, right? Here, each and every order is actually made to order. So we have a different dispensing system which is controlled by the software and dispenses the right amount of ingredients into that bottle.
Okay, and how much time does it take to for the products to reach the customer?
So it takes about around 36 hours for us to formulate it, given it's still a small setup for us. Otherwise, it's something which we have done dynamically and it's semi-automated. But yeah, it's around 36 hours for making it, and rest is shipping immediately.
Okay. All right. Now, Rohit, you forayed into the skincare segment in October this year. It claims to be a 100% customized skincare line for Indian skin. But many brands have taken the plunge into customized skincare. What is unique about your offering? And also take me through the product line.
Sure. So first, I'll talk about what is unique about us. We focus on just a 3-step regime, which is your a cleanser, a day cream, and a night cream. We don't focus on any other product because we believe these are sufficient. And in terms of what's different, what happens is that once we take the quiz online and we kind of make the products over here, the main difference here is that we are a vertically integrated model.
Okay.
Which I mentioned earlier, because in terms of talking what a personalization is and what it's doing is slightly different, because it's just a word, right? It could be a personalized experience versus actually hyper-personalization, which is what we do.
Okay.
To support personalization, you actually need your own R&D capabilities and you need your own manufacturing capabilities, because otherwise in the traditional model, it won't work. So that is what is very different. And of course, we are a clean beauty company, vegan, we take care of formulation. My co-founder Vimal, he studied in UK, worked in Europe, and his formulations are all clean beauty based on, European standards.
Okay. Also, Rohit, you're a direct-to-consumer brand. Take me through the revenue model and tell me how competitive are your products priced? Give me a range.
So, we are a pure D2C brand, direct-to-consumer. There's no middleman. There's no e-commerce site also involved right now. We sell directly on our website. 98% revenue is coming from our website.
Okay. And it's mainly sales of products through your website, right? Rohit, I want to talk to you about the Indian personal care industry that is poised to grow to $28 billion by 2025. What are the new consumer trends that you're seeing? What are people, really looking for?
I think the industry is actually at a very interesting point, and a lot of changes have happened in the last few years since I've been running, startups. One of the biggest trends, obviously, which we forayed into is personalization, because there's a lot of interesting demand, and that's happening because, as in your last interview, I heard there's so many different sellers and others thing.
Yeah.
What happens is it also becomes overwhelming for a consumer. People are getting busy, right? So this helps you, because instead of the onus being on the consumer to figure out what is right for them, you go to an aisle in a retail store, a big one, or on an Amazon or a Flipkart, you will see hundreds and thousands of brands out there shouting that I'm the best for you, right? And then some may be good, some may not be good. So this takes away that friction away.
Okay.
So we take the onus, you give us a quiz, and we will make what is best for you based on a scientific study or based on a kind of a scientific way of selling a product also, right?
Okay.
So that's one of the things. The other trend what we have noticed is that younger people, or even in general, the population has started buying online.
Yeah.
And because they're buying, the information is available very quickly. You can search, you can see the reviews and a lot of things like that. Transparency is happening a lot more. So what has happened is people have become more conscious of what they're using now.
Okay.
So trends like clean beauty, cruelty-free, which nobody thought of earlier when they were in the retail store, or when the advertisement was a mass channel. Now you can ask the question to a brand directly, hey, do you put this? Are you this? Are you that? So that has helped in terms of a lot of transparency, and that is where a lot of stuff is happening.
Your target audience essentially is, the millennials, in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Would you be looking at disrupting this market further?
We have just started, so I think disruption is going to happen in the coming years when this becomes the norm. because that is what the belief is, that, eventually if you're buying a product and it's not something that, suiting you or not done right way. So this is where the norm will be eventually. So that's why we are going to disrupt. We haven't started that yet.
Okay, all right. Rohit, quickly, take me through the future plans, any new products in the pipeline. I believe you're also eyeing global shores. What markets are you looking at?
Right now, we get a lot of demand from US and Europe, because I think when people post on social media, their friends and families are there, they look at it and they want to come and buy. But we are not promoting online right now in terms of going online.
Okay.
Abroad. But I think that's the plan for 2022, early 2022.
Okay, so
and in terms of your product line, actually we believe in less and more, because the kind of personalization and the experience we give with the ingredients and the right formulation.
Okay.
One doesn't need 10 products for skincare, or one doesn't need 10 products for hair care. It's actually less is more is a philosophy we work on.
Okay.
And shampoo is not one formulation for us. It's hundreds and thousands of formulation. So there is so much of learning with the algorithm, with these formulations going on. That is what the focus is.
So the takeaway is less is more, and you're eyeing global shores by 2022. And on that note, it's time for us to take a short break. Thank you so much, Rohit, for joining us on Startup Street. On the other side, we bring you two winners of the National Bio-Entrepreneurship Competition 2020, so stay tuned.
Welcome back to Startup Street, the fourth edition of the National Bio-Entrepreneurship Competition that was held by BIRAC and C-Camp has announced 14 winners this year across multiple categories such as healthcare, environment, agri-tech and others. Joining us now are two winners from this competition, Cyclops Medtech and Godam Innovation. Now, Cyclops Medtech is a Bangalore-based medical technology startup working on wearable and clinical diagnostic solutions using eye tracking technology, which has the potential to diagnose close to 24 neuro disorders at an early stage. Nashik-based Godam Innovations works in the agri-tech sector. They help onion farmers reduce the post-harvest wastage in their warehouses with an IoT-based hardware product. Well, to know more, we have Niranjan Subbarao of Cyclops and Kalyani Shinde of Godam Innovations. Both of you, welcome on the show and congrats on winning at the National Bio-Entrepreneurship Competition. Niranjan, let me come to you first. If you can quickly tell us about Cyclops. You're using computer vision and image processing to track neuro disorders through an eye tracking technology. You've also filed for 5 patents in this area. Tell us, what is the technology that you're looking to patent and what the status is?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me on the show today. It's a fantastic opportunity. So, see, at primary, to give you a little bit of background, right? There's a clear correlation between happenings in the human brain and the movement of the eyes. So that's why it's very easy to say that eyes are a window to the human brain, right? So we have created a very robust technology ecosystem which can capture these eye movements and analyze them and produce very early stage diagnostic insights into what's going wrong in the human brain and the inner ear. So that's the fundamental technology that we have built. And on top of this technology, we are building multiple products to diagnose multiple neuro disorders at a very early stage in its life cycle. So our patents range from the way we are capturing these images, which increases the accuracy of the images, to the way we analyze these images, which would produce better results.
Okay. All right, Kalyani, coming to you, the same question. If you can tell us a little bit about how your product works. We understand it's an IoT-based hardware device which helps in reducing post-harvest wastage for onion farmers. Can you quickly tell us how exactly the product works?
Yeah, hi. Once again, thank you for having me here. The product is what we've developed. So it's like a hardware device. And this is something we go and we deploy in farmer warehouses. So where onion has been stocked for a period of 6 to 8 months. So these are being deployed in multiple locations and real-time data has been sent to the server. At the back end, we are analyzing the data and data like my real-time microclimate in the warehouse and also the gases which are emitted from onion. So based on this, we are able to identify that where exactly the wastage has started in the warehouse and the farmers can take an informed decision on that. We also have applied for a patent for the same, and this is for the process we are following to identify wastage. It's not for the device as such because those are pretty much off-the-shelf components, but what we are doing with the data which we are collecting from the ground is what the algorithm or the patent we have applied for.
Okay. Okay, so you applied for a patent, and you've said that your product helps reduce wastage by 20 to 25%. What is the scale of wastage annually, for onion farmers?
It is around 40 to 50%. There are various causes, but yes, it is around that much.
Okay, that's the kind of wastage that you're helping also prevent. Niranjan, coming to you, you won in multiple categories at this bio-entrepreneurship competition. You also, in fact, won a lot of prize money. What will you be using this funding towards?
Oh yeah, so we have multiple other products in the pipeline as well, right? So we're building a product for screening patients for cognitive impairment pretty early on. We are also building a product for screening patients for dynamic vision-related disorders. So we would be using this money to fasten up our development, and also it will also give us a lot of leverage if we raise the next round of funding, right? So any money is always welcome, and it will give us some push.
Absolutely. Any funding is welcome. Kalyani, same to you. You've raised some funds through certain grants and fellowships. Are you also looking at raising more funding to scale?
Yes, I think absolutely this fund is going to help us to scale, and for us it is more important because we want to go to different geographies in the country at pan-India level, and this is a hardware product, so it is going to be inculcating, we have to incur the cost initially, and this is really going to help us to reach places. And the previous, I think the funds which we have already raised through grants and fellowship have been helping us to sustain our company and also to conduct the trials or experiments which we had to prove the product, whether validating the product. So probably that's how it has been helpful. And now it is more about scale.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Can you give us a quick update on how many farmers you've been able to reach with your product so far?
So currently we are looking at 35 plus farmers which we are planning to work with, but we are working in both sectors right now. We are working with individual farmer warehouses, and we are also targeting farmer producer companies and huge organizations who have huge structures like 400 metric ton to 1000 metric ton structures. So these are entirely two customer base we are looking at to scale, and we have already interacted with more than I think 10-15 FPOs, and that's how that is going to be happening. Other than this, we are also currently starting our R&D in poultry sector because the product or hardware which we have is going to can similarly be implemented in the poultry farms where the chickens of the health is being monitored and maintained. So probably that's where our next move.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're expanding into the poultry sector, not just sticking to onion farmers. Niranjan, quickly, if you can also give us an update on, the scale of the installation of your device. We also understand you are in several countries outside of India as well. If you can give us a quick update on that.
Yeah, sure. So, see, in India, we have our products installed in almost about 220 plus hospitals and clinics spread over 70 different cities. Most of the prominent hospital chains like Manipals to Asters to Columbia Asia are already using our product. And outside of India, we have products installed in 6 countries. Recently, we got our CE certification as a Class 2A medical device, which opens up huge opportunities in Europe, Asia Pacific, as well as Middle East. And so far, a little more than 100,000 patients have been diagnosed on our platform, and in about 3,000 plus patients, life-threatening disorders have been discovered at the right time, and precious lives have been saved.
All right, Niranjan and Kalyani, thank you for joining us. Congrats once again. But with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Startup Street. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to CNBC TV 18.